Introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Cassandra Dumas. I am also a cosplayer in KissCast Cosplay.
Hi, I'm Sakura Seas, also known as Sensei's Corner.
I guess my question is, with Hollywood exploding on itself right now with all the claims of alleged sexual harassment and confirmed sexual harassment,
Yeah.
a lot of people, the cosplay world is no different.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, you both are very beautiful women.
Oh, thank
always.
you.
And have you had issues with sexual harassment in the cosplay universe?
Yeah. It happens more frequently than people would actually think, even though there's so much cosplay is not consent, which is a huge, huge movement within the community. It still happens.
Well, it's sad, and I've definitely experienced it myself. People
Really?
People
Okay,
just
so-
see cosplay, like when you're in cosplay, they think that you're just like a character at a theme park or something, like you're an object there for them to just project
Yeah.
upon. But you're a person, you're an individual, and you need to respect them just like anybody else.
And
There's always been a good understanding, I think, with most conventions, and
Yes.
it's gotten better and better over time, is that cosplay is not consent.
yes.
And even though I'm not cosplaying, people are pretty respectful. They either assume it's a costume or they're not an idiot and don't try to touch me inappropriately. Day-to-day life, I have more problem. Conventions is usually a very safe, homey space. I don't have a lot
So
of...
you've never had any bad experiences at a con?
like, iffy, but I usually give people the benefit of the doubt.
I get it mostly online. I have not had an issue, or at least too much of an issue in person.
I've had an instance, let's see, the first convention I ever went to, I wasn't even dressed like inappropriately. I had a skirt on and I was walking around with my friends, and we actually had a man that came up in the crowd and reached up under my skirt when I wasn't paying attention, groped me, and then disappeared into the crowd before we could even say anything.
The only memorable experience I've ever had with like a sexual harassment is somebody looked at my Hestia cosplay that I was in, and they looked at my chest and they were just like, oh, your boobs aren't big enough.
I run into instances where men will ask questions about my chest and whether or not they can touch them, if they're real. Yeah, it's a real thing.
I've seen it happen. I've been that friend that's been like that, literally like the thwomp in the way.
Yeah.
I was cosplaying with one of my friends, and there was a guy that was trying to get really close to one of my friends. So I had my Wendy Koopa cosplay on with my Koopa shell, and I stood literally behind her with the Koopa shell in his face.
That's awesome.
Cosplaying Street Fighter characters.
Yeah.
Street Fighter characters. And there's this Deadpool cosplayer.
Yeah.
And he,
Touched her and everything?
Yeah.
That's so messed up.
And that's the thing, is not just with us women that have problems either, it's also with men too.
Yeah.
Men also have problems with women coming up and groping them
Think
too.
so?
Yeah. It's not just us. I mean, I've seen
It's a two-way
women
street.
get handsy with men too.
I've been walking in like crowded convention centers, and I've had people legitimately just like feeling me up, and because we're in such like a crowded place, I really can't catch anyone doing it.
Honestly,
Heard about
funny story.
Really?
I'm glad you brought that up, honestly.
Let's hear it.
TenoshiCon, what was it, like 2014? 2014. So I'm down there at TenoshiCon, I think it's in like Westchester, PA. And I was dressed up as Sephiroth, and I was walking around and everything, and there was this like group of people, and we just kind of like started hanging out, and there was this one girl. And she didn't know that me and my woman were an item.
Yeah.
And she just kind of like came up behind me on several occasions and just kind of gave me a little pinch, like on the Sephiroth cheeks.
I haven't experienced any myself. I haven't seen any myself. I just hear cases or, people making comments as I'm walking by.
I haven't had any personal experiences myself, but I've had friends who have, where very oftentimes it's usually people, at least from what I've heard, it's usually people that don't want to face them on. It'll be like a walking like grope of the ass, or just like someone who's like, oh, that's a really nice costume, like touch it. Yeah.
The thing I can say is, no matter what a person is wearing or what character they're portraying, I mean, you shouldn't see it as a sexual object. Regardless of who you are, that's just not right. We're here to have fun.
I think the funniest experience that I've had with it, like just trying to be light on like the first instance, has been there was someone who came up to me. He asked to pick me up for a picture, And at this point, I was wearing one of my more revealing cosplays. It was the Pink Lolita Cat cosplay, probably one of my favorite ones. And he said, I know it sounds weird, but I really want to do it. And I said, yeah, you know, sure. So he picks me up wedding style. So that was kind of one of the funnier instances, but he was very honest and straightforward with it.
So sometimes people stare a little long, but I try to give benefit of the doubt and I don't take too much offense. But never anything super blatant.
Some people don't realize it. Some people might not understand what, you know, certain people's boundaries.
Yeah.
And it's hard, and you want to try and give people the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, just be hyper-focused and aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
Eventually, people need to understand to respect everybody's boundaries. Because harassment can happen to any gender. Anything like this can happen to, you know, all genders. So please respect the person's boundary. Respect them as a human being. You know, if you don't want to be touched there, they probably don't want to be touched there either.
And they just don't have really boundaries, I guess.
Yeah.
But then there are like the people who seriously get like actually harassed.
Yeah.
And that's really unfortunate. And I noticed it a lot with like girls who like to dress up in the costumes, everything. Like when she was Ari and everything, showing off the, you know.
Yeah. And I'm not defending this behavior. It's disgusting. It's wrong. Yeah. What I think happens is half the time people think that it's okay, or they just don't think that because it's in a cosplay environment or a convention environment that somehow it's okay. No.
Yeah. And it's completely unacceptable. It doesn't matter how someone is dressed. So it's like that doesn't give you the leeway to ever touch somebody without their permission.
You see all too often in cosplay guys that don't understand that just because a woman is dressing in a sexy cosplay, they don't understand that that is not consent.
Just because they're dressed like that does not mean you could act inappropriate.
Yeah, because that could be a character that they love, and they're dressing as a character they love, not because they want you to touch them, but because they appreciate that character. And that character is you'll notice it in video games and stuff. A lot of the times, females aren't exactly portrayed in full-blown armor, so that's not how that works.
Yeah.
Please ask before you touch.
And the sad thing is, it doesn't only extend to just con goers. I've seen cases where it's actually been guest stars.
Oh my God, really?
Conventions that then banned because they think I'm a superstar. I'm just gonna go ahead and touch this girl or guy or however they want to.
Yeah.
Absolutely not cool.
Getting photos with someone is the worst, especially men. Well, some men getting photos with is kind of creepy.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, we'll get photos. And then, their arms around you and it gets lower and lower, and then you kind of just like, yeah, that's enough.
And that just if you want a photo with me, that's fine. Ask to take a photo with me, but don't try to grope me or anything like that. It's extremely awkward.
It makes you uncomfortable having even to say something, because you're like, I shouldn't have to be like, yo, don't touch my ass. It should be like common courtesy that you don't do that without someone's permission.
It was different. Because I didn't know how to react at first, but then after the third time, I kind of had to pull her aside. I'm like, look, I'm flattered, really, but can you not?
Well, how can we raise awareness?
Just talk about it. In all honesty, bring it up. Talk to people. Tell them you're uncomfortable. Tell them that it's not appropriate, and then explain why it's not appropriate.
Essentially, please understand that we are a person underneath this costume. Even though we're dressing up as characters that are fictional and not in the real life most of the time, we are people, and you need to ask for our permission if you are going to try to do crazy poses with us or whatever. Of course, most of the time we're going to say yes, but please just ask.
Honestly, through social media like this, share your experiences, your cases, incidents, anything like that. Make people more aware, make people security on top of their game. Anything you do, I believe we can stop this.
Looking out for one another, noticing and being aware, just like your own personal way, being aware of what's going on.
I don't know. It's one of those things, I feel like we're doing pretty good with because the cosplay consent thing has been a big, it was a hashtag for a while. They had big signs up at the bigger conventions. Everyone's doing a pretty good job.
I think the main issue is that for so long people have been afraid to say anything because within our society as a whole, it's not an acceptable thing. You're just supposed to kind of roll with the punches, deal with it, and become a better person for it. That's not how that works. I was like, if you are put in a situation that makes you uncomfortable, you need to say something to someone. Don't sit.
Okay, so how can we prevent it?
I'd say if you're ever going to conventions, always go with a group of friends. It makes you feel safer, and no one's really going to try anything when you're with a group of people.
I always go with someone at a con. Depending on my costume, as a cosplayer, I will have a handler too, which is somebody that basically acts as my bodyguard for the day.
So a large man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or a feisty lady.
Yeah. Usually always having a handler, someone you trust and everything usually helps.
Like, she's scarier than half my male friends.
Yeah.
It sucks because you have to I don't like to say bring a buddy system, because it's like you're teaching the potential victim on how to not be victimized. You got to teach the potential harasser on not to freaking harass. It's just, it's not okay.
But I think really it's down to a case by case. If it happens to you once, you have to make it known that that's not okay. And I feel like just the way you handle yourself might prevent it further.
As long as staff is aware that they have to be there for us, so that if we can't handle it, they have to step in. Because that's, I think, the only thing I've seen at especially smaller conventions is staff isn't really sure what they are and aren't allowed to do. No, you're allowed to kick somebody out. I don't care. You're staff. That's your job. You can.
I think we as a community, just instead of just assuming that, of course cosplay is not consent, I think we need to remind ourselves every now and then. Make shirts. Make sweet ass shirts with little designs. Maybe a teddy bear. I don't know.
I think I'm not trying to justify this in any way, shape, or form. I know, with friends, we're we touch each other all the time.
Yeah.
It's different.
It's fine. Yeah, I literally just grew up my friend, but that's different because we're friends and she accepts that I can do it to her. She knows that. But when you're doing it to a complete stranger, that is totally different.
That's the whole thing. It's consent.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it's one of those things that should go without saying,
Yeah,
but
it
at
should
this
be,
point,
Cosplay is not consent.
Cosplay ain't consent.
Cosplay is not consent.
Cosplay is not consent, and I fully stand by that. Please.
Cosplay is not consent. Sexual harassment's not cool. But every now and then, maybe we just need to remind ourselves.
Tell everybody to be nice to each other.
be nice to each other. Don't be touching butts, man. Come on. Stop it.
I'm just kidding. I love this guy. All right, I love you guys. Be nice to each other.